I'm Cathrine, and I'm here to continue Nicolaj's excellent talk on product market fit. I thought that this was a pretty good quote to start out with. It also actually continues Nicolaj's talk pretty well, because a lot of people, a lot of startup founders go around saying and thinking that they have reached product market fit, but they haven't at all. When you meet a founder who has just hit product market fit, you'll know, because their hair is literally on fire. They are trying to literally just put out fires, because they have so much customer demand that's coming in that they can't keep up. So that's at least one good alternative kind of explanation of when do you know that you're starting to reach product market fit. So what I will talk about here is just my own story, what I have been through, myself and my co-founder Christian included. And with the special focus on product market fit. So I will tell the story about the Keyrings. Yes, that will come
That's
out.
only story.
Yeah, it's only story Nicolaj wants to hear. And then I'll have 4 key learnings that I thought fits well with this topic. And any time that you want to ask questions along the presentations or presentation or after, just shout. Yes. So my startup life started in 2011 with the company Canvasdropr, as you mentioned. I had just finished school at CBS, almost finished actually, and my co-founder, still to this day, Christian, he had a great idea for an image sharing site, and we were at a cafe just hanging out one day, and I saw it and I said, that's great, let's do it. And that's how we started our first company. It was initially a consumer-focused business. It was an image and video sharing site for you and me, for just normal people to use. And I'll get more into sort of that product journey as we go along the presentation. That company pivoted a few times and ultimately turned into Assemblage, building real-time collaboration tools for businesses. So we took a complete turn over a couple of years. So this turn happened in 2013. So between 2011, 12 and 13, we completely changed our target group, our product, and our business model, everything. The only thing that was left actually from Canvasdropr and Assemblage was a tiny piece of technology that was the real-time sort of whiteboarding canvas technology that we had built that was still in this product, but everything around it had completely changed. We sold that company in 2014 to Cisco Systems, and that's how the whole team, which was 8 people at the time, ended up in San Francisco. And that was quite a journey, so that's a topic for a different 45-minute presentation. Exiting your startup, just alone the 4 months of due diligence that went into completing this deal. I was 26-year-old at the time, and Christian was 29 years old. We naturally had not done something like this before. We were very green in startup M&A, and it was a fantastic experience, but also really hard. And now we are at it again, out of Cisco, and we're building a company called Roger in a very different space, in the fintech space, building a bill pay tool for both individuals and businesses. So this is a great slide, right? It's very easy to read. This is just to be able to sort of talk a little bit about that experience going from Canvasdropr to Assemblage, because there are there's a lot of examples in there of relating to product market fit, and to be able to make my points a little bit better when I talk about my learnings, it makes sense to briefly know what we went through. So we started the company in 2011. We relatively quickly managed to raise some money from Danish angels. We raised 500,000 Danish kroners first. We sat at Founder's House, which you had to in 2011 when you were starting a startup in Denmark. We developed the consumer product as we thought, as our hypothesis was when we started this whole thing, was that was what people wanted. We relatively quickly also got users in 40 countries, and also relatively quickly, pretty much 6 months after we had started building this, found out no one wants to use our tool. We had gotten a lot of usage initially, but you showed the retention chart in your presentation, Nicolaj, and our retention chart was horrible at first. So we were looking at something that we thought was a great idea 6 months after raising our initial tiny funding round, and we said to each other, what do we even have? Like, no one is actually using this product for real.
What was it?
Huh?
What was it?
It was an image sharing.
So Canvasdropr is the image sharing.
Yes, exactly. So that was the image sharing product. It was basically like a canvas that you could drag and drop images into, and then you could share it with people real time. Okay. And it was targeted at individuals first, at consumers. So then we tried to say, okay, well, this was one of our biggest mistakes initially. We have this product that no one uses. Let's try and get press. Let's try to launch it big. Let's try to just like pour the rest of the money that we have at like making this seem big and trying to get more signups. Obviously, that did not help. That is something that I strongly advise against. That doesn't work. If you have a product that doesn't have a really, really good retention rate that you can't make people come back to, then pouring press and money and even sales at it will fail miserably. So we went through, basically I could have had the whole startup experience, this whole startup could have been one very bad-looking EKG chart, but especially this period between basically all of 2012 until summer of 2013 was one big attempt at trying to find product market fit using different random methods. Eventually leading to us changing the product to be more B2B focused, because ultimately that's what we heard. A lot of the people that then were using this image sharing tool were using it in a business context. Virtually no consumers were using it to share their holiday pictures. So we decided to completely rebrand the product, split up the product in 3 different products, and go fully B2B. We had a lot of assumptions there, again, about who we were selling to, what the product's value propositions were. And then the real turning point came in August or September 2013 when we joined Alchemist Accelerator in San Francisco, and were able to get some expert knowledge from this accelerator that really helped us get our B2B focus right, focus on the correct metrics, focus on retention, told us, guys, look at retention, it's all you need to look at. If you have a product that can have retaining users, then you've nailed it, and then you can scale. You don't need to look at anything else. So for 6 months, basically, during this accelerator program, we only looked at that, and it was insane what happened. Demo day was in January 2014. So between August and January, we had gotten the right focus, and in January we were on stage presenting to 200 of Silicon Valley's most prominent investors, and within 3 days we had raised $1.4 million. And up until then, we had basically been struggling to raise cash, and we had been struggling to get users. But 3 weeks before demo day, we cracked the code, and our platforms had 10 million events per day. And it really happened in 2 months that we got this product market fit, and were able to stand on stage at demo day and present that exponential curve that everybody wants. So I'll get more into the details along the way. But the first point that I wanted to make is that something that we really benefited from when trying to both find product market fit, but also just surviving, because every day in a startup is one day closer to the death of your startup, because you are constantly you're constantly running out of money, right? And it's your job to get through this this struggle, and doing unconventional things that don't scale is something that worked really, really well for us. One example is the Keyrings. Here it is. The first thing that we did to try to get our first users was that we printed, I think it was 10,000 Keyrings that you see there, the Canvasdropr keyring, and booked flights to Hong Kong and South Korea, because we thought that our product was going to be an image sharing mood board type tool for teenagers in Asia. It sounds really, really random, but that was what got us our first 3,000 or 5,000 users or something. And we just handed out Keyrings in the streets of the big cities in Asia. And it was a crazy experience, but everyone thought that we were absolutely insane. And to this day, it's something that people say like, why did you guys do that? It's weird. And it was, but it really helped get us really quickly to a point where we figured out, okay, that's definitely not what we're going to go for. The product hardly worked at that point. So it was a good way to get something that hardly worked, tested by people who then didn't want it. There wasn't even a gist of something there in that user group that we could build on. So we knew that it was wrong, which was great. So that's a picture of me sending out the first invites to Canvasdropr in Korea, I think. Yeah. So another example of doing unconventional things that we did is not related to product market fit, but related to fundraising, is that we were told initially, hey, there's no way that you can raise money, and we didn't know because we hadn't started a company before, so we didn't know the rules of fundraising. And we were in Christian's apartment, and we were talking like, what do we do? Like, we're running out of money, and we need an investment, and we don't want to get a job. And I was like, I had no ideas. I had no idea what to do. And then Christian, who always comes up with very unconventional ideas, 9 out of 10 horrible, but 1 out of 10 are amazing and change the course of everything that we do. And this was one of them. And he said, let's just write 10 rich people an email and see if they want to invest. And I was like, dude, that's never going to work. But we did it anyway. What were our options? And 9 out of 10 of these people didn't respond. We went for sports stars who knew nothing about tech on purpose. But 9 out of 10 never replied, but one responded, yeah, can you come to my office? I want to see a demo and hear more about it. And he ended up wanting to invest 500,000. We didn't take his money because we got a counter offer from someone else that was better. But that was how we raised our first 500K. Yeah, with this beautiful. I remember we showed him this site actually. Yeah. So number 2 is building very much on, I guess, what Thor said last time, and what you also mentioned in your presentation, your hypothesis that you have, the theory that you set out with, everything that you think initially is probably going to be very wrong, more wrong than you ever think, and you just really have to be ready to change all your fundamental beliefs about that idea that you have. This is what we started out with. It was for consumers in Asia, was our hypothesis. We're solving a huge problem by giving people this real-time canvas, is what we thought. And I remember vividly a conversation that I had with a friend that I said we're going to get 2 million users by like in the next 12 months. So all of these things were wrong. Everything was wrong. All other hypotheses that we had were relatively wrong. In Assemblage, when we branded the products and split it into 3 products and went the B2B road, we did a lot of things right, more right this time. But we still set out with a set of hypotheses that we proved very wrong. We thought that media agencies were going to be our primary target group. We thought that that this real-time image board style thing was very useful to them, and we thought that we would get a ton of paying customers by offering them this product, and none of these things happened. But we did this time get a lot of valuable feedback. So what we just really have always done is push out things that hardly work. I've seen a lot of people polish products to the point where they spend 6 months trying to really polish something up so it looks perfect, and then you can send it out to someone, then you can send it out to a user. We have always really had the approach of shipping things that we're super embarrassed about, really. In the first period, because otherwise, how are you ever going to know if you should keep building it? So we've built a lot of like crappy V1s and tested them out, and that's really the only way that we've been able to disprove our hypothesis that fast. And initially, looking back, we didn't know that was what we were doing, but looking back, that is exactly what we did. And that's what got us to a place at the end where we suddenly had this epiphany during Alchemist. Of course, this is not something that we shouldn't be competing with Cisco and Citrix and like all these like standalone video sharing service or video conferencing services, which is what we pivoted to. Like collaboration products, we should offer this as an API to developers so they can integrate screen sharing and voice conferencing and video conferencing into their own products, because people don't want to use yet another tool to collaborate. They want to integrate these features into their own platforms and their own products. And that is ultimately where we exceeded some of these expectations and proved our hypothesis right. We thought that we would have 1 million daily events within a year, but within 2 months we had 10 million events on our platforms.
What is an event? Is it?
It was like presentation started or video connected, meeting, joined, etc. So we really went through iterations. Really, actually, could have taken a lot more time and a lot more money. But we spent, I think, 1.5 million kroners. No, 1 million kroners. 1.5 million kroners, and 2 years getting to that. Because then in January we were able to show the numbers and raise a not a Series A, but like a larger at that time seed round from U.S. investors. And then 3 months after that, the company got acquired. So the third thing that I wanted to mention is that growth, we thought, or I thought early on, that growth should always be the focus. And a little bit repeating what you said too in your presentation, but there is a time and a place for growth. It can really it can do more harm to a company than you think if you try to really boost signups and growth too early. It's something that I think I learned the really hard way in Canvasdropr, and then a little bit less in Assemblage, but then really surprisingly learned again at Cisco. If you have a product that doesn't have really strong retention rates, then regardless if you're a corporate who can throw millions and millions of dollars at marketing, or if you're a tiny startup that gets like a TechCrunch article or an article in the next web, nothing will help. So it'll just damage you and your startup's reputation. So growth, try to go after growth when you're ready. And that goes together with the fourth thing, which is your only job really, and that is the biggest thing I think that we took away from Canvasdropr, Assemblage, and Cisco, is that for the longest time, maybe for a year and a half, it could be, for Roger it was certainly like over a year, the only job that you have when you're building your product is to focus on making people come back and use it. So for me, I'm so impressed today. In 2011, if you had asked me, if I was talking to a startup and they said, "Oh, we have 5,000 users," I would have said, "Oh my God, that's amazing." But today, I wouldn't really care, because I would be so much more impressed if someone came and said, "We have 10 users and they are using it every day and they are still around after 6 months." And that was how we built Roger, really. So this is the first article I think that we had with Canvasdropr in the Next Web in 2012. And we got like massive amounts of traffic to the site and we were thrilled. And I remember sitting at Founder's House and thinking, we've made it. We're in stage 5. But we were in like stage 1, right? We hadn't proven anything and we couldn't retain any of those signups. Like 3 weeks later, we were looking at these cohort charts and we were like, what is happening? So this is what a cohort chart should look like. More. This is Roger.
Is it Roger's?
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah. It's directly from Mixpanel. So this is more what it should look like. Sorry for bragging. I'm just trying to give a good example. And so that really comes from just like hardcore focus on retention. The first U.S. investor that we got, Adam Bissoni, he talked to us about metrics and said, look at your funnel and where your problems are. And at that point, we were building out the screen sharing tool, and we saw that there was a big demand for it, and people were signing up, and the people who actually made it through the whole way to starting to use it, they were all coming back. So we had pretty much solved retention, so that wasn't really our problem. But he said, there's like 70% that are dropping off between sign up and actually starting the first session. You have a huge activation problem. So he really put labels on those steps in the funnel that really hadn't made any sense to us before. But then we only focused for, I think it was only a week, we only focused on activation, just getting people to start, getting more people, increasing the number of people who signed up and then right away started their first screen sharing session, and our numbers went crazy. And that was the same thing with Roger. When we figured out that the retention was only related, or was mostly related to paying one bill with Roger, then our retention rates went way up.
Could you maybe explain to the audience what Roger is?
Yeah, Roger is a bill pay app. So basically, for consumers, it's an app that you just take a picture of a bill or forward a bill to Roger, and then it gets paid at the due date, and you don't have to worry about it again. For businesses, there's a few added features like an approval flow for getting the bills approved by the right people in the company, and accounting system integrations so that you completely automate your accounts payables for the Danes kreditopbogholderi. So you actually don't have to lift a finger. You just basically, when a bill comes in, it's automatically accounted for in the books the whole way through. So your accountant and yourself save a lot of money. Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, this is from our office in our first office in Cisco. Sorry, Christian, for the photo of you here. the photos of you. But this was just to say that once we had hit those initial phase between phase 4 and 5, we struggled for 2.5 years, 3 years almost, right, trying to just get there. And once we got there, the advisor that we had at Alchemist, he said, now you're ready to grow or you're going to die. And he said that's the only mantra you should have now is grow or die, because your unit economics are there. Like you just now need to prove that you can scale. So that's why Christian painted this on the wall of our office, that we then emptied 3 months later, because we got acquired by Cisco actually down the road from our first office. So that was fun. And then after the acquisition, this was what I just found a couple of photos from that journey. What prompted us to start Roger, I think, was this hell of receipts and invoices. We always handed over bags of netto bags of receipts to our accountants in Denmark. So that was kind of embarrassing. But those were my kind of main points, and there are a lot of more kind of hidden stories in that journey. But I think that those are some of the main learnings that we had around finding product market fit. The main thing, a lot of people are afraid, especially in Denmark, to launch or to put out these flawed products. And a lot of our friends, honestly, and family, they always said, but it's not working. And we're like, no, it's not working. Because sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I'm not saying that you should launch products that don't work at all, but it's just I think shipping something that isn't perfect is much better than not getting the feedback, because it's so expensive. It is expensive to ship something that doesn't work, but it's so much more expensive than to ship something that is perfect, and then you have to redo the whole thing again. It would have taken us 6 years to get where we got. Yeah. Any questions? Yes.
Do you scan the receipt?
Oh, we don't do receipts. We just do bills. This is confusing. Yeah, I'll pop back. Yeah.
Yes. No, you go ahead. Okay. If you could change 1 or 2 things, if you could have done something differently in order to put down the time to market or whatever, have you considered that? What would you have done differently?
Talk to more customers in person, or not in person, but try to have more direct customer contact. Because with Canvasdropr it was really difficult, because they were individual people behind their computer screens, and it was just so intangible. And it was when I look back at it now, it was just so difficult to conceptualize how do I get in touch with these people who have signed up. And we did try to talk to them, but it was really difficult. So in Roger, something that we did really early was, but it was much easier, was to talk to people in person and over the phone and get all their brutal feedback and implement it. Initially, we were in Canvasdropr. I think we were a little more afraid to admit, we should probably completely change this product, because so we could have cut our losses even earlier than we did. Does that, yeah?
It's also part of the journey.
Yeah.
And do you, what kept you going during those times where you were pulling your hair out and it wasn't working?
Having a co-founder.
And how did that keep you going? Was there anything that supported?
Yeah, at some point you're only doing it because you don't want to disappoint the other person, right? And there are times where literally the only reason why I would even go to work is because you owe it to this other person who can't pay his mortgage, because you're running out of money, and you need to do something. it's really that's probably when you get really far out. That is kind of the last resort. Is that you have someone else. That's why, for instance, like a lot of investors don't fund single founders. It's just I'm not saying you can't build a company alone. Of course you can, and lots of people have done it, and a lot of people are doing it. But for me, that was a big motivation to have someone who's going through the exact same thing and who knows what exactly the same feelings. But then otherwise, of course, it's I didn't want to get a job. I worked for 3 months at Erhvervsstyrelsen, and it's tough. It's tougher. So that also was it. Like, oh, damn it! Like, we don't want to go get a job. Imagine. No. Yeah. Yes.
So when you're launching early, how do you avoid drowning in feedback and customer so much urgent stuff coming in, and you don't have time to do the important stuff? That's somebody sometimes said it. Is that us?
Well, I don't know. I don't think that we've at least I don't think we've ever been in a situation where because a lot. Someone I know who was building a tool, a product, he didn't want to launch because he was afraid that when he launched or a shitty product, he would get so much feedback, and that he wouldn't know what to do with it, and he would only spend time like trying to manage that and stuff. But it's most of the time that's a misconception because no one freaking cares. No one cares about your launch.
Also, it's only our customers who are annoying and care.
Huh?
Our customers care.
No, your current customers. But when you're really early and you launch something now at Roger, if our customers and our users who care and use it and depend on it, you can't launch shitty things to them. Yeah. But if you're early and you're trying to reach, you're trying to get the first customers or first users, that's when I think that you should be shipping shitty things. Not when you have a lot of happy users.
Also, we should dial down the shitty stuff.
Yes. You can try. I don't know. We try, but not always succeed. I don't know. I think that we've at least never been in a situation where the feedback was so overwhelming that it was impossible to keep up with. But because that is the most important thing, I guess, at that early stage is to if you're so lucky, if you get that much feedback, oh my God, I would be you're so lucky, right? Yeah. That's what I at least think, because that's the only thing you should be doing is taking in that feedback and figuring out what to build. But then there's the chance that you build too many features. That's what we did in Canvasdropr. Everything, and every time some user said, oh, you should add a text tool. We did it because we didn't have the direction and the focus in that phase. So there's just that to be mindful of, I guess.
You hit it.
Yeah.
Say no to the customers. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I know.
Just more. It's not related to product market fit, but after being at Cisco, what was it like coming back to Denmark? I mean, you were living in San Francisco.
Yeah, I still live in San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so
okay.
I still live in San Francisco,
Okay.
but go to Denmark a lot. So,
Okay.
yeah. But it was it's a transition to go. It was a big transition to go from small startup to 70,000 person company, American corporation. But it was a huge learning. I learned a lot for future startups from being in a big corporation like that, because it just shows you how these big companies build products. So during Canvasdropr and Assemblage, we were very scared of Microsoft and Cisco and Citrix and these big companies building these amazing collaboration tools that everyone's buying. But after being at Cisco for 3 years, with Roger, I'm not concerned about the big companies or the banks, or not concerned with the big.
Why not?
just because. Huh? You know, well, mostly just because of how things are built in these.
Because they're not fashionable, not agile enough, not innovative enough.
Yeah, the way that innovation typically works, I think, in these big companies, you know, you can, if you're smart about it, you can outpace them and outsmart them in so many ways as a small startup. But they know, that's why they buy them.
That's why they buy them.
Yeah.
Is Roger considered a Danish company or a US company?
It's a US company, but we have a Danish subsidiary. Yeah.
It's interesting that the pivot that you made, you did that in San Francisco.
Yes, we did.
Could you talk a bit about San Francisco versus Copenhagen? Could you have done it here?
Relating to, well, no, we were out of options in Denmark. If it was today, I would probably say yes, because there's a completely different ecosystem here now, and there's this, you know, there's investors, there's more of them, there's competition among early stage investors, there's like rainmaking law in Founders House, and there's all this, like lawyers are thinking differently, accountants are thinking differently around the whole ecosystem. When we, in 2011, it wasn't quite there yet, I would say, and we really needed a kick in the ass from Alchemist Accelerator. Like, we really needed their advice. And that B2B specific advice around scaling and product market fit was just not here. We split our products into 3 products to simplify, and had an umbrella brand, Assemblage, and we had 2 products underneath. And when we talked to people about this in Denmark, everyone said, "Oh my God, like, don't do it, you're absolutely insane, like, you should never touch that, you shouldn't do it." And we came to San Francisco, and within 6 months had raised like a relatively big round in a very short amount of time. And we were on a completely different path. We met Adam Sony, who sold Yammer to Microsoft and was the CTO there the whole way. And it's just like one of these people you meet for half an hour and he changes the entire course of your business. And we, at that point, didn't have that environment in Copenhagen. So for us, we couldn't have taken it much further in Denmark. We had to go to San Francisco, but we tried to go without the support of an accelerator. Like, we tried to go just on our own, just to like set up meetings and see what happens. You know, it works better if you have a stamp of approval from an accelerator. It really helped a lot. So I would just recommend, like, a lot of Danish startups now come in and say, you know, "Oh, we're in San Francisco, let's meet up," and we meet up, and they are like, "No, we're too like far along for an accelerator." But it's really, if you're a foreign company that comes to San Francisco, you can really never be too far along for because if you don't have, or at least if you don't have a network in Silicon Valley, then it's going to be difficult. It's got a lot of coffee meetings and introductions that you need, and if you do YC or Alchemist or 500 startups, you have just a giant list of mentors and people who want to help you, and you're like in the system. Yeah, but now it's just much better here now compared to 5 years ago. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot to Cathrine.